Commander Jeho stood at the main window of his research ship, looking down at the blue planet called Earth. His dark eyes reflected the glow of the planet below. After 20 years of studying different worlds, this was his most important mission yet. "Commander, we have positioned the ship exactly as requested," said Lieutenant Sunwoo from her control station. "We are now completely invisible to Earth's detection systems." Jeho nodded and walked to the central display table. The screen showed a large house in the English countryside. It was the year 1943, and inside that house lived one of the most interesting humans in Earth's history, Winston Churchill. "Is the temporal observation equipment ready?" Jeho asked, adjusting his gray uniform. He had studied countless reports about Earth, but this was different. This was a chance to watch history as it happened. "Yes, Commander," answered He-yun, the cultural specialist. She was young for her position, but her understanding of other species was excellent. "The equipment is working perfectly. We can watch everything that happens in the house without changing any historical events." Jeho pressed a button on the display table. The image changed to show the inside of Churchill's study. The room was warm and comfortable, with large leather chairs, wooden bookshelves full of books, and a desk covered with papers. The smell of cigar smoke seemed to drift through the ship's sensors. "Look at all these interesting objects," said He-yun, her eyes wide with excitement. "Each item tells us something about how humans lived during this time." Just then, Winston Churchill walked into the study. He was wearing a simple dressing gown and carrying a glass of amber-colored liquid. Jeho and his crew watched in silence as the human leader sat down in his favorite chair and picked up some papers. "This is remarkable," whispered Min-ki, the senior anthropologist. "We're watching one of Earth's most important leaders during a crucial time in their history. But look, he seems so normal." Jeho understood what Min-ki meant. In all their studies of Earth's history, Churchill was described as a great warrior, a powerful speaker, and a strong leader. But here, in his private moments, he was simply a man enjoying a quiet evening at home. The crew continued to watch as Churchill began writing in a notebook. Sometimes he would stop, look out the window at his garden, and think deeply before continuing to write. "Start recording everything," Jeho ordered. "The Galactic Council needs to see this. They need to understand that human strength isn't just about their wars and technology. It's about moments like this too." He-yun adjusted some controls on her panel. "Commander, I'm picking up some interesting readings. The human's brain activity shows patterns we've only seen in the most advanced meditation masters of other species." Jeho moved closer to look at her screen. The patterns were beautiful and complex. Churchill wasn't just relaxing. His mind was working on multiple levels, solving problems while appearing completely at peace. "This is why we're here," Jeho said to his crew. "Everyone thinks humans won their great war because of their weapons or their armies. But maybe they won because their leaders knew how to stay calm and think clearly even when things were difficult." As the evening continued, they watched Churchill paint, read, and write. Each movement seemed to have a purpose, each quiet moment filled with meaning. Jeho made notes in his own computer, knowing that this mission might change how the entire galaxy viewed humans. "Keep watching," he told his crew. "I think we're about to learn something very important about humanity." The soft lights of the study below continued to glow as the alien ship floated silently in Earth's orbit, its crew fascinated by the peaceful moments of one of humanity's most famous leaders. The alien research ship's observation room was quiet except for the soft hum of equipment. Cultural specialist He-yun leaned forward in her chair, completely focused on the scene below. It was Churchill's evening routine, and she didn't want to miss anything. Beginning detailed observation of the human's evening ritual, she spoke into her recording device. Time is 8:30 p.m., Earth time. In his study, Winston Churchill stood up from his desk and walked to a beautiful wooden cabinet. He opened it carefully, revealing rows of bottles and glasses. The aliens watched as he selected a crystal decanter filled with golden brown liquid. "That's brandy," explained Min-ki, reading from his research notes. "Humans often drink it to relax after a long day. This particular type is very special to their culture." Churchill poured the brandy slowly into a large glass, holding it up to the light to check its color. Every movement was careful and deliberate. He seemed to find joy in these simple actions. "Look at his vital signs," said Lieutenant Sunwoo from her monitoring station. "His heart rate is becoming slower, more relaxed. The ritual itself appears to have a calming effect." Next, Churchill walked to another cabinet, this one made of dark wood with special drawers. He opened one and selected a cigar, examining it carefully before cutting the end with a small silver tool. Hye-yun made more notes in her report. The human shows great respect for these objects. Each item appears to have meaning beyond its basic use. As they watched, Churchill settled into his favorite leather chair. The fire in the fireplace cast warm shadows around the room. He took a small sip of brandy and lit his cigar, creating a peaceful cloud of smoke that drifted up toward the ceiling. Commander Jaiho called Do-hyun from his communication station. "I'm detecting unusual patterns in the room's atmosphere. The combination of smoke, warmth, and lighting appears to create an environment perfect for deep thinking." Jaiho nodded, making his own observations. "This isn't just a simple relaxation period. This is how human leaders prepare their minds for important decisions." Churchill reached for a small radio on the table beside him. He turned it on, and soft classical music filled the room. The aliens listened carefully to the gentle sounds of Mozart floating through their sensors. "The music adds another layer to the ritual," Hye-yun noted. "It's like he's building a perfect environment for both relaxation and concentration." They continued to observe as Churchill picked up a book of poetry. He read slowly, sometimes stopping to look into the fire or take another sip of brandy. His face showed deep thought and complete peace at the same time. "Send these readings to the Galactic Council," Jaiho ordered. "They need to understand that human strength isn't always about action. Sometimes it's about knowing when to be still." As the evening continued, Churchill occasionally made notes in a small book he kept beside his chair. The aliens noticed how he would pause between writing, letting his thoughts develop naturally. "It's so different from what we expected," said Hye-yun softly. "The history books talk about his powerful speeches and bold decisions, but here we see where those ideas really begin, in quiet moments like this." The room below grew darker as the evening went on, lit only by the fire and a single lamp. Churchill's evening ritual continued, each moment flowing smoothly into the next. The alien observers watched in respectful silence, understanding that they were witnessing something truly special. "This is how humans find their wisdom," Jaiho said to his crew. "Not in the noise of war, but in the peace of evenings like this. We must learn to understand these quiet moments if we want to understand humanity." Senior anthropologist Min-ki sat at his research station, carefully studying the readings from Churchill's study. 3 weeks had passed since they began their observation, and patterns were starting to emerge. Tonight was particularly interesting. Churchill sat in his study, surrounded by stacks of letters and reports. The room was quiet except for the soft ticking of a large clock and the gentle crackle of the fireplace. Unlike other evenings, he wasn't writing or reading. He was simply thinking. "Commander," Min-ki called softly, "you should see these brainwave patterns. They're extraordinary." Commander Jaiho moved to Min-ki's station and looked at the screen. The pattern showed waves of deep concentration mixed with unusual bursts of activity. "What do you make of it?" he asked. "It's like nothing we've seen before," Min-ki explained. "When other species think deeply, their patterns are usually chaotic or very rigid. But Churchill's mind shows both order and creativity at the same time." Below in the study, Churchill stood up and walked to his window. He looked out at his garden, now dark in the evening light. His reflection showed in the glass, and for a moment, both the aliens and Churchill seemed to be looking at the same image. "His heart rate is steady," reported Lieutenant Sunwoo. Blood pressure normal. He appears to be completely at peace, even though we know he's dealing with very difficult decisions. Yun, who had been making detailed notes, spoke up. According to today's historical records, tomorrow he has to make a decision that will affect thousands of lives. Yet look at how calm he is. The aliens watched as Churchill turned from the window and picked up a small black notebook from his desk. He opened it and began to write, his movements unhurried and deliberate. "Start recording at maximum detail," ordered J.O. "This might be the moment we've been waiting for." Churchill wrote several lines, then stopped and looked into the fire. He took a sip of water from a glass on his desk, then wrote several more lines. This pattern continued for almost an hour. "Look at this," said Do Hyun from his communication station. "Every time he pauses, there's a spike in neural activity. It's like he's having a conversation with himself." The room grew quieter as the night went on. Even the alien observers found themselves speaking in whispers, as if they might disturb the peaceful scene below. They watched as Churchill finally closed his notebook and placed it carefully in his desk drawer. "Tomorrow," Yun said softly, "the history books say he will announce a decision that helps turn the tide of the war. And here we are, watching the moment that decision takes its final form." Churchill stood up and walked to his bookshelf. He selected a volume of ancient history and settled back into his chair. The aliens noticed how the tension in his shoulders had disappeared. "This is what we came to understand," Jaho said to his crew. "Human wisdom doesn't come from quick reactions or loud debates. It comes from moments like this, quiet times when they allow their minds to work in peace." As the evening grew later, Churchill continued to read, occasionally making small notes in the book's margins. The fire burned lower, and the room grew dimmer, but the sense of peace remained. "Add this to our special observations file," Jaiho instructed. "The Galactic Council needs to understand that human strength isn't just about action. Sometimes their greatest power lies in knowing when to be still and think deeply." The alien ship continued its silent orbit, its instruments recording every detail of this historic evening. Below in his study, Churchill finally closed his book and prepared to retire for the night, unaware that his quiet moments of contemplation were teaching advanced beings about the true nature of human wisdom. Research Officer Yu Jin prepared her specialized monitoring equipment as the morning sun rose over the English countryside. Today was special. Churchill had arranged his schedule to spend the morning painting, and the alien research team was eager to observe this particular human activity. "All recording devices are ready," Yu Jin announced to Commander Jaio. "The light levels are perfect for detailed observation." In the garden below, Churchill's staff had set up his painting equipment. There was an easel, a wooden box filled with paint tubes, several brushes, and a blank canvas. A comfortable chair sat nearby, along with a small table holding water and his preferred morning beverages. "He approaches," Lieutenant Sunwoo reported from her station. The crew watched as Churchill walked into the garden, wearing a light-colored suit and carrying his favorite hat. He moved with purpose, examining the morning light and studying the flowers that would be his subject today. "Notice how his heart rate changes," Haeyun observed, monitoring the medical readings. "It's becoming calmer, more measured. The very act of preparing to paint appears to affect his physical state." Churchill settled himself before the canvas and began to arrange his paints. Each color was carefully squeezed onto a wooden palette, creating a rainbow of possibilities. The aliens watched in fascination as he mixed colors, testing combinations on a small piece of paper. "This is remarkable," said Min Ki, making notes in his anthropological record. "His attention to detail mirrors how he approaches political problems, but here it serves a completely different purpose." The first brush stroke on the canvas drew everyone's attention. Churchill started with a light blue for the sky, his movements confident yet gentle. The aliens noticed how he would step back occasionally, studying his work with the same intensity he gave to military maps. "The neural patterns are fascinating," reported Do Hyun from his station. When he paints, both sides of his brain show increased activity. It's as if the art allows him to use his whole mind in a way that political work doesn't. As the morning progressed, the painting began to take shape. Flowers emerged from careful brushstrokes, their colors bright against the garden background. Churchill worked steadily, sometimes pausing to sip his drink or study the actual flowers before continuing. "Look at how he corrects his mistakes," Yu Jin pointed out. "He doesn't become frustrated. He simply incorporates them into the overall picture or patiently paints over them. It's quite different from how most leaders handle errors." Commander Jai-ho nodded thoughtfully. This might explain something important about human resilience. They don't expect perfection. They expect progress. The morning light grew stronger, and Churchill adjusted his position slightly to maintain the same view. His concentration never wavered, even when a bird landed nearby or when distant sounds carried from the house. His breathing patterns suggest deep relaxation, Hei-yun noted. Yet his mind is clearly very active. This combination seems unique to artistic activities. As the painting neared completion, the alien observers noticed something unexpected. Churchill began to smile more frequently, taking evident pleasure in his creation. The same man who carried the weight of a nation's survival found joy in capturing the beauty of simple garden flowers. "Record everything," Jai-ho instructed his crew. "This is vital information for understanding humans. Their ability to create beauty while facing great challenges might be one of their most important strengths." The morning session concluded with Churchill signing his name in the corner of the canvas. He stood back, studying his work with satisfaction. The aliens watched as he carefully cleaned his brushes and packed away his supplies, treating each tool with respect. "Today's observation provides crucial insights," Jai-ho said to his team. "We've witnessed how humans use art not just for creation, but for maintaining their inner peace. This might be one of their most sophisticated survival strategies." Lieutenant Sun Wu's monitoring equipment detected the approaching car first. It was nearly midnight, an unusual time for visitors at Churchill's residence. The alien research team quickly adjusted their observation equipment to capture this unexpected event. Vehicle approaching from the east entrance, Sun Wu reported to Commander Jai-ho. "Single occupant. Based on the vehicle type, it appears to be a diplomatic car." The aliens watched as a young man stepped out of the car. He carried a leather briefcase and wore a neat but wrinkled suit, suggesting a long day of work. The house staff, despite the late hour, efficiently guided him to Churchill's study. "Identifying the visitor now," said Hei-yun, consulting her historical records. "He appears to be a junior diplomat from the Foreign Office. The records show he later becomes an important figure in post-war negotiations." Churchill was still awake in his study, reading reports by the firelight. When the young diplomat entered, Churchill looked up and smiled warmly. He gestured to a comfortable chair near the fire. "Observe their positioning," Min-ki noted. Churchill isn't sitting behind his desk. He's creating an informal atmosphere by having them sit as equals by the fire. The alien team watched as Churchill poured 2 glasses of brandy, handing one to his visitor. The young man's hands were shaking slightly, showing his nervousness, but Churchill's gentle manner helped him relax. "Their vital signs are interesting," reported Du-yun. "The young human's stress levels are decreasing, while Churchill maintains his usual calm state. It's as if his tranquility is somehow affecting the other human." The conversation began slowly. The young diplomat opened his briefcase and showed Churchill some papers. Instead of reading them immediately, Churchill engaged the young man in conversation about his family and his work. "This is remarkable," said Hei-yun. "Even though the matter appears urgent, Churchill is taking time to establish a personal connection first. It's a pattern we've noticed in many successful human interactions." As they talked, the atmosphere in the study grew more comfortable. The young diplomat's posture relaxed, and his speech became more confident. Churchill listened carefully, occasionally asking questions or nodding in understanding. "Look at Churchill's technique," Commander Jai-ho observed. "He's teaching without appearing to teach. guiding without seeming to guide. This must be how humans pass wisdom between generations. After discussing the official matters, Churchill began sharing stories from his own early career. The alien observers noticed how he chose examples that related to the young diplomat's current challenges. "The neural patterns are fascinating," Sun Wu reported. "Both humans are showing increased activity in areas associated with learning and memory. This isn't just a meeting, it's a carefully crafted teaching moment." As midnight turned to early morning, Churchill and his visitor moved to the map room. Together, they studied the large world map on the wall, discussing various regions and their importance. Churchill's gestures were unhurried and deliberate as he explained his thoughts. "Record everything about their interaction," Jai-ho instructed. "This shows how humans mentor their future leaders. It's not just about sharing information, it's about sharing wisdom through personal connection." The meeting concluded with Churchill writing a note for the young diplomat to take back to his superiors. Before the visitor left, Churchill placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder and spoke a few quiet words of encouragement. "We've witnessed something special," Jai-ho told his crew as they watched the diplomatic car drive away. "This is how humans build their future, not just through official channels, but through these quiet, personal moments of guidance and understanding." Chief Historian Tai Young arrived early at his observation post as the morning mist still covered Churchill's garden. Experience had taught the alien research team that Churchill's morning walks often yielded the most interesting insights into human decision-making. "Weather conditions are optimal," Lieutenant Sun Wu reported from her station. "Temperature is mild, humidity moderate. Perfect conditions for an extended garden walk." Commander Jai-ho nodded as he studied the morning readings. "Is the recording equipment prepared for outdoor observation?" "All systems are functioning at peak efficiency," Hae-yun confirmed, adjusting her cultural monitoring devices. "We should have excellent coverage of both conversation and physical measurements." Churchill emerged from the house wearing his familiar walking clothes, a comfortable suit, and his signature hat. Today, he was accompanied by 3 advisors, each carrying folders filled with important papers. They walked slowly along the garden path, surrounded by blooming flowers and carefully trimmed hedges. "Notice their walking formation," Min-ki observed, making careful notes. "Churchill always positions himself so the morning sun doesn't interfere with his vision. Even small details like this show his tactical thinking." The group stopped near a rose garden, where Churchill paused to examine a particularly beautiful bloom. While appearing to discuss the flowers, he seamlessly transitioned into addressing the serious matters at hand. "Fascinating," said Do-hyun from his communication station. His heart rate and stress indicators remained perfectly steady while discussing matters that would normally cause significant anxiety in other humans. The aliens watched as Churchill led his advisors to a wooden bench beneath an old oak tree. He sat down, inviting them to join him in the pleasant morning shade. One advisor opened his folder and began presenting information about recent developments. "Observe his method," Commander Jai-ho said to his team. "He creates a peaceful environment before addressing difficult topics. The garden setting appears to help everyone think more clearly." Churchill listened carefully to each advisor, occasionally asking questions or making notes in a small notebook he carried. The morning birds sang in the background, creating a striking contrast to the serious matters being discussed. "Their brain patterns show remarkable synchronization," reported Sun Wu, studying her monitors. "The natural environment seems to help them think together more effectively." As they walked through a path lined with flowering shrubs, Churchill stopped to point out various plants he had helped select for the garden. Each pause in their serious discussion seemed carefully timed, allowing moments of reflection between important decisions. "This demonstrates a uniquely human approach," Tai Young noted. "They balanced the weight of their responsibilities with appreciation for natural beauty. It appears to help them maintain perspective." The morning sun grew stronger as the meeting continued. Churchill led his group to different parts of the garden, each location seemingly chosen for its particular atmosphere. Near the pond for peaceful reflection, by the stone wall for more private discussions, and along the open lawns for broader strategic thinking. Add this observation to our special studies. Jai-ho instructed. The way humans integrate nature into their decision-making process might be more significant than we initially thought. As the garden meeting concluded, Churchill's advisors departed with clear directions and renewed purpose. The alien observers noticed how different their demeanor was compared to when they arrived. More confident, more focused, and notably more optimistic. Today's session confirms our developing theory, Jai-ho said to his crew. Human leadership isn't just about making decisions. It's about creating the right environment for wisdom to emerge naturally. Communications expert Do-hyun sat at his research station, surrounded by data collected over many weeks of observing Churchill. His eyes widened as he noticed something remarkable in the patterns on his screen. He quickly called Commander Jai-ho to his station. "Commander, I believe I've made an important discovery," Do-hyun said, pointing to his displays. These patterns in Churchill's daily routines match meditation practices we've seen across the galaxy. Jai-ho studied the data carefully. The screen showed comparisons between Churchill's brain patterns during his quiet evening moments and those of spiritual leaders from various alien worlds. The similarities were striking. "Show me more," Jai-ho requested, pulling up a chair beside Do-hyun's station. The rest of the crew gathered around, interested in this new development. Do-hyun brought up more detailed scans. "Look at these readings from when Churchill sits in his study, smoking his evening cigar. The brain waves match exactly with the meditation patterns of the high sages of Proxima Centauri." Hae-yun moved closer to examine the data. "And here," she pointed, "when he's painting in the garden. These patterns are nearly identical to the contemplative states achieved by the crystal minds of Sirius B." Down in the study, Churchill was engaged in his evening routine. He sat in his leather chair, eyes closed, apparently just resting. But the alien instruments showed intense mental activity beneath the peaceful exterior. "His mind is operating on multiple levels," Min-ki observed, checking his anthropological readings. "Just like the ancient masters we studied on other worlds. He's achieved this state without any formal training." Lieutenant Sunwoo added her own analysis. "The physical readings are consistent too. His heart rate, breathing, and brain activity all show the classic patterns of deep contemplation we've documented across the galaxy." The alien team watched as Churchill opened his eyes and began to write in his journal. His movements were slow and deliberate, just like the ceremonial writing of the star monks of Vega. "This changes everything we thought we knew about humans," Commander Jai-ho said thoughtfully. "They've developed the same mental disciplines as ancient spacefaring races, but they've done it naturally, through practical experience." Do-hyun continued to record data as Churchill moved through his evening activities. Each action seemed to reveal new connections to meditative practices the aliens had observed throughout the universe. "Look at how he holds his cigar," Hae-yun pointed out. "The ritualistic pattern matches the thought-focusing ceremonies of the Orion Alliance, but he's developed this habit entirely on his own." The team spent hours comparing their observations with records from other worlds. They found dozens of similarities between Churchill's natural behaviors and the carefully developed spiritual practices of advanced civilizations. "Send a priority message to the Galactic Council," Jai-ho instructed. "Humans have independently developed the same mental techniques that other species spent thousands of years perfecting. This proves they have greater potential than anyone suspected." As evening turned to night, Churchill continued his routine, unaware that his simple actions were revolutionizing alien understanding of human capabilities. His practice of finding peace amid chaos, of maintaining clarity during difficult times, showed that humans had naturally evolved advanced mental abilities. "This discovery will change how the galaxy views humanity," Commander Jai-ho said to his crew. "They aren't just a young species developing technology. They've already mastered one of the universe's most important skills, the ability to find wisdom in silence." Commander Jai-ho sat in his private office aboard the research vessel, carefully composing his final report to the Galactic Council. After months of observation, It was time to present their findings about humanity, as seen through the daily life of Winston Churchill. "Computer, begin recording final report," Jai-Ho said clearly. He looked out his viewport at the blue planet below, gathering his thoughts before speaking. "To the honorable members of the Galactic Council, I present our conclusions from Project Earth Observer. Our study of the human leader Winston Churchill has revealed extraordinary insights into human nature." In the observation room, the rest of the crew continued their work. Hei-Yun and Min-Ki were organizing their cultural data, while Do-Hyun and Sun-Woo completed their final measurements. Through their monitors, they could see Churchill in his study, working on his memoirs. "Our primary discovery," Jai-Ho continued in his report, "is that human strength comes not from their technology or their weapons, but from their ability to find peace in difficult times. We have observed their leader Churchill demonstrate this repeatedly." He paused to review the data on his screen. "The human practice of maintaining calm during crisis appears to be a natural ability, one that matches the trained meditation skills of our most advanced civilizations. They have developed this without outside guidance." Down in the study, Churchill had finished his writing for the day. He stood by his window, looking out at his garden as the evening light faded. The alien team's instruments showed his mind was in a state of perfect balance, active yet peaceful. "We recommend," Jai-Ho spoke carefully, "that Earth be added to the Galactic Heritage Registry. Churchill's home should be marked as a site of special importance. It represents humanity's natural development of universal wisdom." Hei-Yun entered Jai-Ho's office with additional data. "Commander, we have completed our final analysis of Churchill's daily patterns," she said, placing a data crystal on his desk. "The results are even more impressive than we expected." Jai-Ho nodded and continued his report. "The human ability to blend practical leadership with deep contemplation suggests they are more advanced than previously thought. Their methods of finding peace amid chaos could teach valuable lessons to all species." Through the observation screens, they watched as Churchill prepared for his evening rest. He moved through his familiar routine, checking the garden one last time, arranging his books for tomorrow, and finally settling in his favorite chair. Most significantly, Jai-Ho added to his report, "We have learned that true strength often looks like quietness. Humans understand this naturally. Churchill's daily habits show that power can be gentle, and wisdom often speaks in whispers." The commander stood and walked to his viewport, watching Earth's clouds swirl below. "We recommend continuing observation of humanity, but with a new perspective. We should study not just their actions, but their moments of peace. Not just their words, but their silences." In the study below, Churchill had fallen asleep in his chair, a book open on his lap. The fire burned low, casting warm shadows around the room. The scene perfectly captured everything the aliens had learned about human nature. In conclusion, Jai-Ho said, finishing his report, "We believe humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy may not be their technology or their art, but their understanding of how to find tranquility in troubled times. Through Churchill, we have seen the true power of peace." As the commander ended his recording, the research ship prepared for departure. Their mission was complete, but its impact would be felt throughout the galaxy. They had come to study human strength, and discovered instead the power of human peace.